you miss me, little doggy? I've been sleeping deep inside. It's been cramped and kind of boring, so how's about restoring me? I'll take you for a ride. Actually, I'm good, no thank you. I've been doing fine without you, with my powers and my voice. Yeah! Whose powers are those really? You didn't come...
Hello, cartoon fans. Welcome to Generation Toon, presented by the Space Monkey X Audio Workshop. This is your host, Rob Lamley. Here on Generation Toon, I, a Gen Xer, will be joined by my wife, Andrea, a millennial, and our Gen Z daughter, Harper, to watch some of our favorite cartoons spanning the last 40 years. In case you're not familiar with the show, each installment is part of a 3-episode cycle where one of the co-hosts presents a cartoon from their generation. We sit down and watch some of the featured cartoon, and then we'll talk about what makes it great, not so great, and whether or not we'd watch more of it in the future. If you like what you hear, please subscribe today and don't forget to leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. And with that, let's head over to the latest episode of Generation Toon.
Demonic little plot twist, 'cause Norma needs me now. Your bark is bigger than your bite, kid. She's gone unless we're united. So come on, baby, give me that wheel, yeah. No, last time you tried to kill...
All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Generation Toon. Rob, Andrea, and Harper are back. This time we are talking about Harper's Choice. In the last episode, we said it was going to be Craig of the Creek, but our daughter changed her mind, which is fine. And we have decided to do Dead End Paranormal Park instead this time. Let me give you a little bit of background information on the show. Dead End Paranormal Park is a Netflix cartoon that debuted on June 16th, 2022. Obviously, this means there's only one season so far, made up of 10 half-hour episodes. This is also the newest cartoon we've ever done. By far. I mean, this has only been out for a month, so it's kind of wild.
Yeah,
the reason why I wanted to do it.
Okay.
It got moved up the list because of its being so
cool.
timely.
The show is the creation of Hamish Steele, a writer, artist, and animation director from London who has been on the scene for about 10 years now.
Okay. I'm like, come on. Hamish Steele is like...
the most British name ever.
Well, it sounds... almost made up, but then you're okay.
It could very well be. I mean, it could just be a pseudonym.
And if you were going to make one up,
well, yeah, that would be my name.
Yes.
Okay. His first big project was Pantheon, a self-published graphic novel from 2013 about the Egyptian myth of Horus and Set.
I'm listening.
The project was funded by Kickstarter and sold well enough that it drew the attention of No Brow Press, who released a color version in 2017. In 2014, during his final year at Kingston University's School for Animation and Illustration, Steele created and storyboarded Dead End for Cartoon Hangover, an online cartoon site that was run by Frederator Studios, producers of Adventure Time, Bravest Warriors, and The Fairly OddParents. Dead End was an animated short that inspired the creation of Dead Endia, the web series turned graphic novel series that Dead End Paranormal Park is based upon. The original short had a bit more of an adult edge to it, and was apparently even edgier when first produced, but Cartoon Hangover decided to move away from more mature animation towards programs that were more suitable for children, so Steele toned it down a little bit. Even with these changes, it's definitely a bit spicier than the Netflix show, which we watched that short, and it did have a few...
I loved it!
Yeah, it did have a few, a little bit more adult in tone
definitely.
jokes.
It is one that if it were on Netflix with that attitude,
I'd be all over
we'd
it.
be talking about it as being my pick.
Yes, yeah.
And not their pick.
I'll put a link to the short. It's on YouTube in the show notes because it really is worth watching, absolutely. Steele has also worked on a handful of pilots for the Nickelodeon Shorts program, including Badly Drawn Animals in 2015 and The Tall Tales of Urchin in 2016.
Badly Drawn Animals? Did we watch that?
No, but I think it's been discussed before. I don't know.
Okay.
He also wrote and produced Crock and Roll, a 2021 graphic novel about an all-alligator rock band with artist George Williams. Dead End Paranormal Park follows the adventures of Barney and his talking dog Pugsley, his co-worker Norma, and a demon named Courtney as they battle the forces of evil every day at a theme park called Phoenix Parks. Dead End Paranormal Park stars Zach Barak, an openly gay trans actor who is the first transgender person with a credited role in a Marvel film, Spider-Man Far From Home. He plays Barney, a gay trans character who has taken up residency in the park to avoid what he perceives as a less than welcoming home life. Cody Kavitha plays Norma, Barney's Phoenix Park's obsessed coworker. Kavitha has been a frequent voice artist on shows like Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, We Bare Bears, and Curious George. Pugsley, the semi-possessed talking dog, is played by Alex Brightman, who is best known for playing Beetlejuice on Broadway.
Oh, yeah.
The demon Courtney is played by Emily Osment, the younger sister of Haley Joel Osment, who has appeared on Young Sheldon, Family Guy, and played Gertie Giggles in the Spy Kids movies.
See, I told you it was Beetlejuice. You guys were like all confused, and then I said it was.
Well, didn't you said it was Broadway?
Broadway.
And I was like, oh, well,
That's
okay.
completely different thinking because we were listening for Michael Keaton.
Yeah, or even the cartoon. You know.
Yeah.
The show has caused some controversy in right-wing circles by presenting gay, trans, and neurodivergent characters in story beats.
By being cool.
Yeah, by being a good show.
Steele is himself a gay man who has hired many LGBTQ cast and crew for the show and hopes that his cartoon will inspire other LGBTQ creators to tell their stories. Speaking of which, on May 4th, 2022, 5 Republican senators wrote an open letter to the TV Parental Guidelines Advisory Board demanding they update their rating system to include warnings about sexual orientation and gender identity. The letter claims, quote, "In recent years, concerning topics of a sexual nature have become aggressively politicized and promoted in children's programming, including irreversible and harmful experimental treatments for mental disorders like gender dysphoria."
You know,
yes, because
okay.
straight kisses and sex scenes do not...
Well, just hang on. I'm going to say this right now. If we go too far down this path, this will not be the normal PG language path. I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, try to keep it that way.
But I'm angry.
I understand that.
Same.
Okay, the letter goes on to say, quote, "The motivations of hypersexualized entertainment producers striving to push this content on young audiences are suspect at best and predatory at worst."
Oh, sure.
Signed, senators who have to catch an Epstein flight.
Exactly. And finally, quote, "To the detriment of children, gender dysphoria has become sensationalized in the popular media and television with radical activists and entertainment companies. This radical and sexual sensation not only harms children, but also destabilizes and damages parental rights."
Now go get me another copy, sweetheart. Smack.
Yeah, go
Like,
get me another
on.
14-year-old I can
See?
texting.
See?
Okay, these 4 shows, the 4 shows these senators included by name in their letter were Danger Force, The Loud House, She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, and Dead End Paranormal Park, which hadn't even been released yet when the letter was written. So they hadn't even seen it. They just heard what it was about.
Okay, well, so...
But here's the thing.
That tracks.
They don't care what it was about. They don't care if it's a good
the
show.
The Loud House, it was literally one character. I remember that
It doesn't-
one
it
character.
doesn't
matter
matter
to them.
It doesn't matter to them, and it doesn't matter that it's just one character. Enough buzzwords that they have become terrified of without fully understanding were involved in the creation or discussion
I'm
around
sorry,
it.
you're saying that is predatory when multiple people in power have been accused of...
Yeah, a lot
That's
worse.
what we're getting at.
Yeah.
That's what we're getting at.
I mean, the point being that the show hadn't even been released yet, and they're already calling it out for being this predatory, horrible thing.
I'm gonna sprain an eyeball rolling them.
Okay, regardless, the show has received almost universal acclaim from professional critics. However, if you look at audience reviews on Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb, you'll find a lot of, quote, review bombing from conservative users who claim it's too woke, it's pushing the gay agenda, it's grooming kids, etc., saying nothing about the actual quality of the show. So the best way to decide if it's for you is to check it out for yourself.
Absolutely.
For this episode of Generation Toon, we watched the first 4 episodes of the show: The Job, The Tunnel, Trust Me, and Night of the Living Kids. Okay, so that's kind of the background on the show. Harper, why did you choose this one? Would you like me to get your soapbox out for you?
Thunk! Hop on up!
Basically, I chose the show not only because I like shows with good LGBTQ representation, I also chose it because it had a lot of good stuff artist-wise. If you're like an artist who wants to learn more about character design or backgrounds or whatever, it has a good flow to it. It's also just a cute story that I've been obsessed with for the past month.
Yeah, okay.
I would die for Pugsley.
Same! Pugsley is the best character on the show!
He is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's something about I can't put my finger on it, but there is something about the animation in that it feels both very simple and very complex at the same time. Like, I don't know, it goes in extremes.
I think it's because there are little details in the background.
I was going to say, the background really drew me.
The background's because it has such, and it like backs up, and also because they use that simple style to, like, with the demons that we see in the first episode. I mean, might as well.
Yeah,
but,
go ahead.
In the demons we see in the first episode, there are detail around them. Maybe it's not like little specks, but it's still a lot of detail for this character. For some of the more monstrous designs, there was a lot of detail and care for it. So most of the time you do see this simple style, and then it surprises you by adding more detail to a character.
Well, I think to me it is, like, I'm going to use Pugsley as a example because there were times where, you know, he's a lump of a pug. So I mean, it's very simple, but I think it's the fact that the backgrounds were more detailed with the drawings being simpler. They're not competing. You're able to take in the whole thing rather than everything being the same level.
Yeah. One thing I found really interesting about the animation is that there's not a lot of what's it called? Stretch and squeeze or squish and
Squish and stretch.
There you go. There's not a lot of that. There's very little exaggeration. It's all very self-contained and semi-realistic. Like, you're not seeing, you know, eyeballs ooga, you know, jumping out or anything.
You know what? If anything, it would go to the extreme the other way. Like when the character who was it? They were yelling at each other, and they get really simplistic.
Yeah,
like
these little blobs with like little dot eyes who are just stretching just a little bit to make the mouth.
But it's not outlandish. Yeah, you know, it's very contained.
That was actually something that when I watched the first episode, actually kind of bothered me at first.
I can understand that
because again, I usually will draw myself towards animation that exaggerates a lot.
Right.
And so whenever I saw that it wasn't exaggerating a lot, I'm like, okay, it's a bit of a more boring style in my opinion. But then as the series continued, I fell more and more in love with the style because I had gotten so used to it, and it also fits so well with the characters and so well with how they animated them and the story and everything, that I'm just like, okay, I can set this aside because it works for this specific story.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so one thing that I really appreciated, and I don't remember what episode, it might have been Trust Me, but they switched styles up when they went into...
It was Trust Me.
Yeah, it was Trust Me.
Yeah, when she's having her panic attack.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And I do feel like, as someone who related real hard to that episode...
Oh, yeah, same.
Like, they really kind of captured what it feels like when you have this irrational fear of being in the spotlight. Like, this irrational fear of, like, how this smallest of looks can look like someone's glaring at you.
And I also related a lot to Norma in that episode when she was, like, basically being forced out of the car, and she was, like, trying her best to get a grasp at everything going around and everything that's processing. Also, the scene where they're, like, holding each other's hands.
Oh, doing the human knot.
And doing the human knot. Oh my god. I related to that so badly.
That whole, like...
I loved team building bullshit.
That but that whole sequence of, like, the fact that his whole thing is that he feeds off of fear, so of course he becomes a team building guru.
Right, yeah.
Because no one likes that crap.
Yeah.
No one. And if you do, I have questions about your stability. But yeah, it just, I love that was thrown in there because it is a universal fear.
Like, and I also like with her, like, kind of breaking down and not being, and, like, basically covering her ears and stuff. I've wanted to do that each time we've done something like that in school.
Yeah.
I just knew that my mind was screaming at me, like, if you do that, everyone's gonna look at you, so don't do it, just keep it in.
It is the literal embodiment of, I wish the ground would swallow me up right now.
Oh,
I do not want to be visible. I do not want to be perceived. I just would like, I am a lump and ignore me.
I also like how after all of that stuff happens, she doesn't immediately want to be, like, social and do that stuff with her friends.
Oh, you're right. I'm cured.
Yeah,
it was more
it was okay, maybe next time.
Yeah.
But
I'm feeling better.
It was keep inviting me.
Well, Right.
Let me say no, but I want to know that you still want me here.
Right.
Because it'll make it easier for me to say yes the next time.
And I liked that in that episode, she suddenly found her power when she realized everyone else was scared of things too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so that empowered her by making her realize she wasn't a weirdo. We're all scared of things.
Actually, more so, it made her... her whole thing was like, I'm terrified of just the everyday. So something that's actually supposed to be scary doesn't bother me as much because I live my whole life like this.
Right.
I also think it was important because, like, I also think that it was because her friends were in danger and everything that, like, made her suddenly drop. And, like, this wasn't an everyday situation, so she was less scared of it. She was able to deal with it, and so as soon as she saw her friends were in danger, she would jump in and try to help them. She would be braver for them. And then...
I don't know anyone like that as I look across the room.
Anyway.
Anyways.
Because that's the... Like, I was just going to say, like, that's the thing, is all of a sudden you have something else to focus on.
Yeah.
The focus is no longer on me.
Mm-hmm.
I have to help this other person. And I get to be a part of the background now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the
but
safe
she wasn't
space.
part of the background. She was the main one who understood.
It doesn't matter, though, because in her mind, she's working to help them. So therefore, she cannot be the center of attention. She's not the one. Don't look at me like that.
Just like looking in a mirror.
I'm telling you,
I related to her
very
a
much
lot.
so related to her.
I
am 40 years old. Like, I'd love to say it gets better. It doesn't.
I also related, like, I also thought it was really funny whenever she couldn't remember any of their names, so she just remembered them
their jobs.
from their jobs. Like, I thought that was funny.
But that's exactly, honestly.
But it's also relatable to me.
I'm that way. I'm like, oh, I don't know you, but I know you work in engineering.
I know you're in
don't
this
remember
class.
Your name.
I know you're here. Just
That's
remind me of your
absolutely
name.
how I am.
And also,
honestly, isn't it better though if you remember someone's face and forget their name? Because if you remembered their name and then looked straight at them and were like, "And you are,"
yeah, we've met 6 times, Rob.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
the way that she takes a lot of stuff literally is sometimes me is like she like people will like ask her a question and she will just go but that like
that's part of the neurodivergent aspect of the character that is apparently, I mean, we only saw 4 episodes, so we only got a hint of that. I remember
hearing about this because the I believe Steele, I believe it was Steele. It might have been someone who worked like very closely with the show, but I believe it was Steele, said that after he released Dead End, people were commenting about how happy they were to see a neurodivergent character, and he said he was just writing her as stuff he's experienced. So he went to go take a test to see, and he actually was diagnosed with autism, and he turned out to be autistic, and so Dead End actually helped him figure that out.
That's pretty wild. That's cool. But
so, like, basically the community helped him figure out something and, like,
that's
figure
cool.
that part of himself.
But
isn't
I
that
mean...
what TikTok's for?
It's not what Twitter's for. But, I mean, that's part of her neurodivergency, is taking things very literally. I know, in my time as a computer nerd, I've met plenty of guys who do not understand the concept of sarcasm or... turns of phrases. They are very much...
It's just, everybody's brain works different.
Yeah,
and once you accept that, it makes it a lot easier to go, I know how to communicate with you.
Yes, and then you can. It's just a matter of adapting.
It's a matter of figuring out. Yeah. Like, I know there are people I interact with where I'm just like, it's like you're speaking a different language. I don't understand what you're saying. And it's not that it's technical.
Right.
It's the way they describe, like, a everyday occurrence.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like that for me where I'm just like, I don't fully understand where you're coming from, but I like to listen. So just continue talking.
I appreciate your enthusiasm, and I will always lend an ear.
One thing that I found really, I don't want to say a negative, but it was just kind of an odd structure for me, was the storytelling. Obviously, the show is compared a lot to Gravity Falls.
Yeah.
And one of the common things with Gravity Falls is that opening stinger, where there's a scary moment that happens that sets up the rest of the episode. And that doesn't happen on this show. It opens with just character moments and then eventually there's something supernatural that comes up.
Well, it's more of a...
You know,
there's
no mystery to solve. It's just these things happen.
Right, because this is more of a let's learn about these characters,
right?
And this is just the wacky shenanigans that happen in their day to day.
I will say that a lot of it in those first scenes that you see before the intro is connect the dots, where it's like where it's like this stuff will lead up by the end. Since we didn't see the end, that's why it might have been a little bit weird for you, but it does, like, sure, it's these weird moments, but they eventually do connect into the end of the first season.
So it's more of the storyline running through the series.
Where everything is connected, you just don't see it until, like, you
Which
begin.
is kind of the opposite of Gravity Falls.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we find out, like, I'm interested in this.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's right at the top of my list, like, while I'm doing other things, but I do want to finish watching it. Do we find out what the worm thing is?
No.
I love him, though.
Because I love him.
We just know that he's
just one of the demons,
He's one of the demons that Courtney was with.
Yeah.
And he's just sticking around.
I love him.
I do, too.
There's
awesome.
there's sometimes, like, after the end card, like, after the title, there will be multiple instances where you just get to see him being him. Like, in the...
Well, that's what I'm talking about, is, like, we just see him at the very beginning of, like, in a lot of them. But yeah, that one where it's just like him just falling off the billboard. Yeah.
It was... And also, I believe in one of the episodes, like, I think shortly after the intro, I believe it might have been actually episode 5, but in one of them, he goes through a window, but then the window shuts and cuts him in half.
And turns him into 2. We saw that one.
We did?
Yeah,
oh, yeah, we did.
I remember
was
that.
Was it episode 4 or...
It must have been, because we didn't get to 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember, but I remember that happening, because I thought it was great.
Yeah, we never get to learn. We just know it's a demon.
Okay.
He
cracks me up. I
love him.
Yeah.
What was your favorite episodes of the 4 that we watched?
Trust me.
Episode 2, which is...
The Tunnel?
Yeah.
That one is pretty fun.
That one is
We haven't
fun.
even mentioned that one yet, but I dug that one.
That and also...
It's the one where all the mascots have been tucked away and, like,
they turn
the
into, like,
catacombs.
zombie fries.
It's like a zombie
What's the thing they keep saying?
Meat.
Meat.
And everybody thinks it's MEAT, but it's actually MEET.
Yes, they just want to meet the kids.
They want to meet the people.
Yeah.
And it's... I was, like, so confused on why Pugsley was, like, helping them at first until they showed that up. And I'm like, oh!
Yeah, that was really clever.
That was a really clever way to use misspelling.
It was I don't know if you've seen it. I know you haven't, but it was a very clever take on Westworld. Have you ever seen that movie?
No.
Okay. It's about a theme park where there are robots that look like people. But the problem is that one of them malfunctions and goes on like a Terminator rampage to find this one guy who shot him and made him malfunction.
That's Westworld?
That's Westworld.
Jeez.
Now,
what is the Westworld? Don't you watch Westworld on HBO?
I used to watch it on HBO, but it's based on that. This is from the 1974, 75, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Mid to late 70s. It was written and directed by Michael Crichton, who did Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
But then that went on to inspire the Terminator. And if you've ever seen the film, you'll definitely see the connection. But either way, it's very similar to that. It's also very similar to the Simpsons episode that is also borrowed from that, Itchy and Scratchy Land, where all the animatronics go nuts. Mm-hmm. And obviously it leads into FNAF, and all the kind of, the creepy, more recent, creepy stuff like that. So I thought that was a really nice twist on all of those scary animatronic stories.
I also like the fact, I like that even before Trust Me, we got to see a little bit of Norma's anxiety as, like, a little kid, where she's surrounded by people are talking to her, she doesn't want to be here, and then one of the mascot heads fall, and, like, pops eyes out, and suddenly she's fine.
That was awesome.
That was also the epitome of a kid at that age.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's one of those things that you think the one thing is going to traumatize them.
But in fact
it was this other thing that you thought was innocuous that didn't, bother them.
So it was, I thought that was really cool.
Like getting an American Girl doll for Christmas.
Let's cut this out.
Whatever. I totally understood it in the moment when it happened.
I hate the Uncanny Valley so much.
And that's not even That's not even truly getting into what's realistic.
No,
Screw
but it
American
was
Girl
close
doll. I
enough.
prefer Monster High.
I think my favorite episode was Night of the Living Kids, and I think the reason it was my favorite is because it was closer to a Gravity Falls episode. It's really leaned on the supernatural and that side of things, and that is more my thing. That's just kind of who I am. But one thing I found really interesting is that was it the Night Hag?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna go all Freudian on you here.
Oh God.
The Night Hag is an old myth, an old legend that deals with sleep paralysis. The idea that your brain is half awake and half asleep, and you can't move because you're in this semi-conscious dream
Sleep
state.
paralysis demon.
It's exactly what it is. And so part of that, one of the symptoms of that is you feel like there's a crushing weight on your chest. And the Night Hag was always the explanation for that. Because obviously back in the olden times, they didn't know about sleep paralysis and what that does to the brains.
And therefore, a woman must have done
Well,
it.
yeah, of course. But the thought
An unattractive woman done it.
The thought was that the Night Hag was sitting on your chest and sucking out your soul. Much like the show here, the Night Hag, would suck out your sleep. So it was kind of the same thing. But I thought that was really cool how that tied into old legends. And I don't even know if most people would even know that, except for nerds like me.
Well, in
apple tree ball.
yeah, but I also like how she takes away all the sleep you've had for as many years. So the kids who are already feral, who are like 10 years old, and then Barney, the main character, who's like 15.
Yeah.
He gets all his sleep, so he's even more unhinged. I love that little detail of like, sure, there's a bunch of sleep kids who who lost all their 10 years of sleep. But this teenager, who basically runs on sleep, has the most sleep to lose, so it's all sucked out, and he's the most unhinged, and I love that.
I think, again, as being a horror fan, I think the other part of that I loved was kind of the Night of the Living Dead, or maybe even 28 Days Later aspect of it, where the kids, like you said, are just feral, and they're just going after other people and trying to basically infect them. Yeah, I thought that was really
anyone
great.
who has been to a lock-in with children knows you don't need a Night Hag.
No.
That's just the way they are.
Yes. So that was my favorite, but I'm glad you guys liked your episodes too.
Yeah.
Obviously, let's bring up the multicolored elephant in the room. Let's bring up the trans and gay and that kind of representation, because we've talked about that.
Multicolored elephant in the room is what the GOP is afraid of. That's like their biggest nightmare.
That's the Simpsons joke. Do you remember that one?
No.
There's a joke where Maggie has a pink elephant balloon, and she loses it, and it floats up into the sky, and it goes into an office building window, and there's a bunch of men sitting at a conference table and saying, okay, we're gay, we're Republican, what can we use as our mascot? And then this pink elephant balloon flies through, and the guy goes like, it's a bit on the nose, don't you think? It's one of my favorite Simpsons jokes.
Oh my god,
I love the Simpsons so much.
Anyways, back to the multicolored elephant in the room. But that was one of the things that really drew to me, because I heard about this show because of course Netflix doesn't promote stuff,
anything, yeah.
But doesn't promote stuff other than Stranger Things, and this was like smack dab in the middle.
Yeah.
So when I heard about it on TikTok, it was people saying, hey, go watch this, go rate it well so we can get another second season. Because they knew that if it doesn't rate well, they're just going to take it off, or they're just going to cancel it, and they don't want that again.
Right.
Because Netflix has already canceled too many shows with good gay characters. So I watched it, and the fact that they say that Barney is trans out loud, and the fact that they do not...
Episode 2.
Yeah.
They don't wait.
And also, they do not hide the fact that he has a crush on a guy. And, like, we didn't even get to this, but there is an episode where he is trying to flirt with this guy the entire episode.
Yeah.
Like, he's trying.
Although, for that aspect, for him flirting and everything, that's not unique to this, because Kipo, that and the Wonder Beast definitely had a gay character.
Yeah.
But
young man,
This is just an...
But it's also fun because, like, normally you don't really get a show with a trans masculine character who's
Mhm.
also gay, who gets with the guy in the end.
Right.
Most of the time,
Ugh, spoilers. Rude. Show's been out a month.
Spoiler warning.
this entire thing is a
I know.
spoiler warning. But like usually the trans mass, either the guy that they like is straight.
Right.
They either die
Right.
or they suddenly have an attraction towards women. Like it's not, you don't all get that.
Yeah.
Usually something happens and nothing happens.
Right.
And like no gays.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and the point is that it needs to. Well, yes, we are talking about it because it is newer, but my hope would be that someday it just wouldn't be talked about because it would be so common.
Yeah. I mean,
Do you know what I mean? Like
that's
that
the hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do, but this is how you get there, is you start
Right.
showing animated stuff and everything.
Well, and that's exactly the fear all those congressmen have.
Especially
Their senators.
animated,
Yeah.
especially animated like cartoons with this stuff in it for kids. Stuff that's more
absolutely.
PG.
And
But
It
that's
gets
what
to
I
the younger
mean.
generation, and the younger generation is our future.
and
So
I think that was part of the controversy with the right wing, is that this is rated TV 7.
Mhm.
It's made for little kids according to Netflix, and I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying I think that is where part of their concern lay.
Well, that is where their concern lies, because again, they hadn't seen this,
No.
and they put that out and name dropped this,
Yeah.
and all they're going on is that rating.
Yeah, well, and the description of the show.
Right.
I also really liked. We didn't see it much in the episodes that we watched, but it does get more like talked about later
Oh,
in the
we're
episodes.
spoiling more stuff? Okay, go ahead.
But it's the conflict between Barney and his parents and his grandma, that entire family,
Mhm.
and it's the fact that like like in one of the episodes that we were about to watch, but then I remembered Trust Me. But in one of the episodes, he sits down with his family because his younger brother, who is in the kid like
The Night of the Living Kids.
Night of the Living Kids, basically told his mom where his brother is, and
okay.
so they have a family dinner at one of Phoenix Parks' like restaurants,
Okay.
and they have a family dinner, and he basically tells them, "Okay, yeah, you accepted me, but that's just the bare minimum. You need to continue to support me, and you need to continue standing up for me,
Mm-hmm.
and staying silent in front of people who don't accept me isn't going to help me. It's not supporting me." And he tells them that straight up, and I felt like that was a good message for young trans kids who might not have the best accepting family to hear, is that your family's not treating you with love just because they say, "Okay, yes, we accept you." They need to fully accept you, and they need to fully make that commitment to accept you and support you.
They need to
without-
actually advocate for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually advocate for it. And I felt like that was a really sweet moment. The dinner was it was the epitome of awkward family dinners. I got so much secondhand embarrassment from it.
Oh my god. I probably can't even watch it.
Yeah. But like, it was interesting, and they tried out the metaphor of like talking about their food in place of their family. And the little brother who's just sitting there was just like, "We can get more nachos." Like he was getting all fed up.
Like he doesn't understand what they're
He doesn't
doing.
fully understand the metaphor. So
Gotcha.
he's just sitting there like, "We'll
thinks they're
get more
talking about
nachos."
food, yeah.
Chill.
Yeah, I liked how it just mentioned things.
Yeah.
That Barney was trans, didn't make a big deal out of it.
They also didn't make it. They'd also like, although they added that family conflict, they didn't make him being trans his whole character. They still gave him more
Exactly.
character than just being trans.
And I think that goes back to where people are, just scared of the words, not necessarily even giving the show its fair shake.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because
That's
it's
exactly it.
not a focus of the show from the first 4 episodes anyway.
Yeah.
Again, it's dropped, it's mentioned, but it's not like that's all Barney is.
No. No.
Although he deals with this throughout the show, it's still like he still also is just Barney.
Yeah.
He has his interests, he has his hobbies, he has
Well,
crushes,
that's the
he has
thing,
everything.
yeah. He is a complete, well-rounded character
Yeah.
because no one aspect defines him.
Right.
Except for Pugsley.
I also liked how the difference in characters, not only in the main cast but also the background characters, they're all so different.
Yeah.
With Barney, we have a plus-size trans mask, which is something you usually don't see in media.
No, you really don't.
And yet we've had 2 this month. Because, Baymax on Disney Plus.
Oh, yeah.
That clip
I
is
saw
going
that.
around, and like, yeah, so it's like, 0 to 2, okay, cool. Yeah.
But, and then we also have, like, Muslim characters, who is one of their, like, lead co-workers, who's kind of Norma's friend.
I liked her in the Trust Me episode.
Oh, yeah.
Where she's
Where
like,
Norma was naming off Death
Yeah.
Slide as her job.
Yeah,
She's
and
like,
she's
I
like-
love that nickname.
I want to keep that.
Yeah, that one, well, that, and also well, do you just want to get to the tour? This is a bad idea. And then later, that was a bad idea. But I learned so much.
Yeah.
Also the wow, I didn't think you were gonna actually say yes. Like, I love their coworkers as well. The guy who's like always on his phone.
Yeah,
like,
the total bruh.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Chad.
Well, yeah, because his fear was the best. When he was like, my symmetrical
Right.
face!
And then and then Logs, who is Barney.
Asian? Is he Asian on the show?
Yeah, I believe so.
I couldn't really
the
tell from the drawing.
Ethnicity.
It was kind of vague.
I haven't done much research on
Okay.
like that, but I know he's a person of color. He's the main love interest for Barney. They don't give him much for a character, but it's also at the same time
He's a little bit of the little redhead girl from Peanuts. He's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
he's a pretty face. We don't really know much
He's
about him.
pretty
the
face. We'll
object
learn
of...
more later.
Probably,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
He's the object of the main character's desire,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so, therefore, he's perfect in every way.
Right.
Because that's how Barney sees him.
Probably,
right now.
yes.
And God, I'm regretting my decision of Trust Me, just because I really love this episode where Barney is like basically the main point of the episode where he and Barney are together is that they're in line for a new like love ride, like themed
Or
around
like a
love.
tunnel of
Tunnel of
love.
Love,
type
yeah.
thing.
And they're in line because they both want to see it. Norma is originally the one who wants to see it, and he's waiting there, and then he gets pushed in front with Logs, and
Gotcha.
suddenly he's stuck with his crush, and like two older like POC lesbians come up and are just like, we remember going on this ride when we were teenagers. How long have you two been together? And Barney's just freaking out like, no.
So what does Log say?
Logs just kind of sits there and he's like, yeah, no, we're not. We're just friends. And then he just says that very calmly while Barney's freaking out,
Right.
which is just the epitome of gay panic, and I love it.
So, spoiler warning. Do they get together in this season?
Yes.
Okay. So
They-
Logs feels the same?
Yes.
All right.
And it's
He's just better at playing it cool.
yeah,
apparently.
and it actually happens in a musical episode that we didn't get to.
Should we have watched the last 5 episodes instead of the first 4?
I love all of these episodes. All
Okay.
right.
All right.
But yeah, we get that to a musical episode.
Okay.
Where
God, how gay is that?
He's literally singing about the boy he loves and how much he wants to talk about him and how much he wants to be with him. And I'm just like, that's so gay. I love that. It's just such a gay thing. It's just there's a musical episode.
That is hilarious.
And the best part about it is that Pugsley cast a spell that made everyone start singing.
Okay, that's pretty hilarious.
Like the entire episode, like in the beginning, he casts a spell where he wants everyone to sing. And so in the episode, people will burst out in musical numbers about what they're going through.
Yeah.
So while Barney is like, he's trapped in like a prison
Yeah, anyway.
basically,
Yeah, it's
he
a cartoon.
just begins singing about this boy he loves because Pugsley was the one who cast the spell that everyone's gonna start singing now.
Gotcha. See, I like that because I really don't like musicals very much because of the silly aspect of everybody singing everything they're doing.
Everyone just suddenly singing.
But I like the idea that there's been a spell cast upon them and they can't help it.
They've got this demon, which basically now makes it to where they can be like, well, of course we're going to do an entire episode in claymation.
Yeah, exactly.
Pugsley
They
has
can kind of
willed
do
it
whatever
to
they
get to
want. Yeah.
happen.
I didn't catch the fact that he cast a spell when I first watched the episode, and then I rewatched it. I'm like, oh, that's a spell he said. That's why everyone's singing. That's why it... And then it became less awkward for me.
Gotcha.
Because, like, unless I'm going to a musical episodes and musical TV don't really sit with me if I don't know what's going to happen.
Okay. It was a great show. I'm really glad we watched it. Harper, obviously you've watched it all.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, you've already said you'd watch more of it.
Yeah, I would definitely consider watching
And
more of that.
I definitely had a good time with it. And it sounds like the last 6 episodes we should have been watching.
I'm
So
sorry, I got distracted
No.
by the anxious episode.
but we also needed to watch the intros to kind of get
Yeah.
an idea.
Yeah,
So,
I feel like this was. I will tell you that going back and watching, trust me, makes me want to watch it more.
Also, the first 2 episodes connect.
right. Yes,
So
they do.
You
Yeah.
kind of needed to.
Yeah.
You kind of needed
We actually
to.
watched the first and third, and then you were like, "Oh wait, we need to go back and watch the second to understand
Yeah.
everything." So yeah, I mean, I thought it was a really clever, neat little show. I think it has a lot of potential, and we'll just kind of see how it goes.
I
in
really hope
ensuing
it gets a second
seasons.
season because
I hope so too.
it's such a good story, and although like the main plot of the first season's resolved, I cannot wait to see what else they cook up because
Yeah.
oh my god, they have a good team of writers.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I definitely recommend the show to anyone because I mean it's just a good show.
I think it's
in
worth checking out
general.
too. Yeah. And despite the Senator's disagreement, I think it's pretty good for all ages.
Yeah.
I see no reason why a little kid couldn't watch this.
I would love for our younger child to watch it.
So.
Oh yeah, same.
Okay, well, I guess that about wraps it up for us. Thanks a lot, folks. Next time it will be my choice. We're trying to figure out what we're going to do. There's been talk of an anime cycle. There's been talk of all movies cycle. We're just not quite sure yet. So stay tuned, and you will find out next time. Thanks a lot, folks.
It's not like I sit around just obsessing about his deep brown eyes. It's not like I lie awake while repressing tingly tummy butterflies. It's not like I filled a notebook up listing the things we might talk about. It's not as though even now I'm resisting the urge to ask him out. I mean, we